Your Somerset, your station. Claire Carter at breakfast.
Morning to you, thanks for tuning in. It's almost 7:34. Now, the news on the front of many of our papers today, I think fairly distressing. More former football players have alleged that they were sexually abused in the sports youth system during the 1980s and 90s. Jason Dunford and Chris Unsworth have waived their right to anonymity and have told the BBC that they were targeted by the former Crewe Alexandra coach Barry Bennell. He's been jailed 3 times for sex offences against boys. Meanwhile, the Guardian newspaper has reported that another former player, who wishes to remain anonymous, has claimed he was a victim at Newcastle United. 4 former footballers have already spoken out publicly. Taunton solicitor, this is Rachel Thain, is working with the charity Enough Abuse, which is offering to help the Football Association prevent child sexual abuse. One of the charity's ambassadors is Andy Woodward, the footballer whose story in the Guardian newspaper last week has prompted others to speak out. Rachel, thanks for coming into the studio today. Good morning.
Good morning.
What do you and Enough Abuse want the FA to do now?
I think a lot of it is about training and awareness. So what Enough Abuse really focuses on is grooming, which is a precursor to abuse. Because once something's happened, you can't take that traumatic experience away from that young person, and they're probably going to carry it for the rest of their life. But if you can step in sooner and recognise concerning behaviours, because it's unlikely that somebody is going to go from absolutely nothing to then abusing a child. There's quite a lot of work put in by that person to get to that stage where they build up that level of control and trust from not only the child but also their parents and the people around them to be able to get away with this. So very much Marilyn, the CEO of the charity, she has personally experienced her own children were abused by her best friend and headmaster of the school she worked in. So she's very, very passionate, and she now looks back and sees these signs that she missed, and she wants other people to be aware of them and these concerning behaviours, and to just ask questions. If you're not comfortable about something, talk to somebody else about it. Don't just think, oh, it must be nothing, and kind of ignore it.
When we hear about stories like this coming to light, there is also the issue of who almost handles the overview. Would you like to see an independent body handling these cases rather than the FA?
I think so. I think the difficulty is these organisations have a reputation that they want to protect, and I think it's very easy to say this is something that happened in the past, we're much better now, we've got new policies and procedures in place, and that's a bit of a kind of easy way out of having any current responsibility, apologising for things happened in the past, but leaving it in the past, and it's not just a problem from the past. And I think where you've got that slight conflict where an organisation has a reputation they want to protect, I think having someone independent to come in to really look at things is really, really important, because change needs to happen, and I don't think this is just a problem that happened in the past.
Which was going to be my next point. I mean, I know what we're talking about. The cases that we're seeing brought to light on the papers date back 25 to 30 years. Aren't things a lot better now? Because, I mean, clubs, they do have to have safeguarding policies. I mean, things seem a lot stricter now when it comes to what checks you need to have in order to do your job.
Yeah, I think that, the thing with the CRB checks, if somebody's never been caught, it doesn't mean that they're not doing things wrong, and there's only so much that can be done. But I think in terms of, there's an article yesterday, a teacher was convicted for abusing pupils in school between 2001 and 2012. Safeguarding in schools is meant to be very, very strict, yet he got away with this for over a decade in 2 different schools. I think you can have policies and procedures in place, and if you go on the FA website, there's a lovely leaflet you can print off and read through about safeguarding and what to do. But my question would be, is this being used? Is everyone trained properly on it? Is it being utilised? And as well as the safeguarding in terms of, if there is actually something going on, what to do. But again, taking a step back and looking at the grooming and giving people training on that side of things, I think there is a lot of situations where people can step in sooner and prevent it escalating. And I think that's something that's very important to me, because in my work, the clients that I speak to are generally very traumatised, and you can't undo that harm, and that's a very frustrating place to be in.
And that's trauma that stays with you, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
I read in a few articles, I know obviously so many people within the world of football, famous people are coming out and talking about this. There are some that are saying, okay, we're hearing of 4, 5, 6 footballers now. Is there a fear this has gone a lot wider and we could be seeing this scandal getting bigger, much like the Jimmy Savile saga?
I'm almost certain that will be the case, and I think not only in football, but I think in other sports as well. I think football, our love of football in this country is huge, and I think that other people that are in, that competitive environment, I think they will look at this and say, well, people have come forward in football and this has been the support they've got. Maybe I can now come forward in a different sport, things like swimming, gymnastics, various other sports. I think it will definitely happen. I think it's going to be, again, another kind of tip of the iceberg is what we're seeing at the moment.
What's your advice for somebody if they're listening and perhaps maybe feel that they now do want to come forward?
I think be reassured by the people that are coming forward. I think there's often a fear of not being believed. I think you will be believed, and there's a lot of support out there. There are great charities, Enough Abuse, NFPCC, smaller charities as well that dedicate themselves to
and that are local to you as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think that's a key thing, knowing that you don't have to go to the big national ones. You can go down the road and speak to somebody.
Yeah, and you can speak in a confidential way to people and get some initial advice. I think a lot of people are quite fearful about what to expect if they do make that disclosure and where that's going to go, rather than just ringing the police and making an allegation. So I think speaking to charities and counsellors is really, really helpful in order to get that support. And I think I would just encourage people to speak out, and it's difficult and it's a very brave thing to do, but in doing so you're inspiring and protecting other people in the same way that Andy Woodward and the other footballers have.
Thank you for your time this morning, Rachel. I really
Very
appreciate
welcome.
you coming in. Thank you. That's Rachel Thain there, who's from Slee Blackwell Solicitors in Taunton, who is working with the charity Enough Abuse to try to prevent the sexual abuse of children in sport. And as I say, it continues to be. And it's a horrific story. And I think it's hard to see on the front pages as we have done this week. That is ongoing. If you'd like to find out more information, by all means, you can phone up us. We can pass you numbers to charities, to people in Somerset, if you would like to talk to anybody further. It's 7:40. It's BBC Somerset here. It's Claire Carter at breakfast. Thank you very much for tuning in. Do stay tuned. Plenty more to come between now and 9 o'clock.